Cisco CCNA in 60 days. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you can. We're on day 51, which is JSON and content management. These are new items for the CCNA. Probably going to be expected to be tested in quite some detail for these, so please do study and do some extra reading, obviously. So you need to know JSON, XML and YAML, the differences, what they would look like. You don't have to configure any of this, I don't think, but you just need to know what it looks like. And also content management, how it works. These 3 books will help you study for your CCNA and give you an extra boost towards passing. So on with the lesson. I'll see you tomorrow.
In this lesson, you will learn the following. How does the JSON, XML, and YAML data format look like, and where do we use these data formats? We will compare these 3 data formats in terms of readability and writability. Many data formats are available to help your applications to talk to a wide range of APIs available. These data formats use a syntax that could easily be read by humans and machines. For example, you can use an API to communicate to a switch and automatically configure interface policies across its ports connected to the end users. However, before doing this, you need to verify the data type supported by that API. An API server can understand the code that you developed and converts the instructions that will be understood by the switch. Here are the different data formats that we will cover: XML or Extensible Markup Language, JSON or JavaScript Object Notation, and YAML or YAML-ain't Markup Language. Now, what is the most obvious difference between the 3? Any guesses? If you say it's the extension name, then you got it right. For JSON, it is .json. For XML, it's .xml. Then for YAML, it's .yaml. Right? Simple, right? Now, let's further talk about each of them. XML is considered by others as not so humanly readable compared to JSON and YAML. XML is verbose or kind of wordy, redundant, and quite complex to use. XML is used to exchange highly structured data between applications. When we talk about programming in Java, XML is widely used. Let's now talk about JSON. JSON is an alternative to XML as it is smaller and much easier to read. JSON is used to transmit data between a server and a web page. The syntax used in JSON is the same in the JavaScript programming language. So it means that you can easily convert JSON data into JavaScript objects. The JSON system is also useful for YAML, as JSON is basically a subset of YAML. Now let's talk about the 3rd format, which is YAML. So if you are developing your first API and you don't have a lot of development experience, YAML would be the best choice when you want to choose a data format to use. YAML is built for people who are just starting to code from scratch. JSON and XML are mostly for programming codes to be more readable by machines. As of today, YAML is used in many configuration files. YAML has similar indentation style with that of Python, so people who understand Python may easily read and understand the YAML code. Let us further talk about the different data formats. The first data format that you will learn is YAML, which, as the name suggests, is not a markup language like JSON and XML. With its minimal format, it was more heavily weighted to be humanly writable and readable, but it works in the same way as other data formats. In general, YAML is the most humanly readable of all formats, and at the same time, it is just as easy for programs to use, which is why it is becoming increasingly popular with programmability engineers. Note that tab indentations are not allowed in YAML because different tools are treated differently. White spaces are important to YAML because the white space indentation defines the structure of the YAML file. All data inside a particular object is at the same level of indentation. In this example, the first object to be indented is a user named J. All data at the same indentation level are attributes of the same object. The next level of indentation begins at the location property, denoting an object that represents a location with city and state properties. Typically, YAML uses 2 whitespace indentation for each newly defined object, but you can also use your preferred indentation system. In YAML, keys and values are separated only by a colon and space, which makes it very intuitive for people to read or write. YAML will also try to assume which data type is meant to be a value, so no codes are needed. YAML automatically knows when the value ends. Also intuitively, the dash syntax in YAML denotes the lists. They might seem so natural to you that it's like writing a shopping list for the grocery stores. Now let's talk about JSON. JSON is another widely used data format. JSON was derived from the programming language of JavaScript. Due to this historical background, the JavaScript code can easily convert data from a JSON file to native JavaScript objects. JSON syntax uses curly braces, square brackets, and quotations for its data representation. Typically, the very first character in a JSON file is a curly brace that defines a new object structure. Below that, you're going to find all the information about that object. With YAML, white spaces are important, but this is not the case with JSON. All the white spaces you see are for humans to consume and read data. They have nothing to do with how the JSON file is being consumed by an application or script. Here, you are free to choose which type of formatting style you want to use with JSON, as long as the other syntax rules remains in place. You will notice that all data in a JSON file format is presented in the same way as in YAML, using a key value notation. Every object starts and ends with a curly bracket, and the user is inside the main object in this figure. This object defines all the information you want to configure for the user. You can see here that a name is given to a J user and a location in the list of rows is assigned. We also notice that all values assigned to this user are separated by a comma. Separating values by comma is mandatory for all objects, except that the last one there is no comma at the end of the list of objects in the JSON code. And the last data format that we're going to talk about is XML. Another data serialization format that is widely used for exchanging information over the internet on 2 machines is XML. The beginnings of XML date back to the previous century, with the first version initially defined in 1998. It is very similar to HTML. Both are markup language, which means that they indicate which parts of a document are present and not how the data will be shown specifically on your system. For this purpose, XML code uses tags to encircle elements as key and value. All object information is defined inside the tag and the slash tag openings with a slash to indicate the closing tag. When using tags, you need to be careful that the start and the end tags match both the name itself and the letter case. For example, lowercase tag and an uppercase tag would not work properly, whereas a smaller case tag with a dot and a smaller case tag, or uppercase tag with an uppercase tag would work perfectly. Note that the name of the tag is the same, that only differs in case. Usually the names of the tags in XML are all written in the lowercase. White spaces can be quite important in some formats, or they don't have any meaning in others. XML is a combination of both of them. Significant white spaces are part of the content of the document and are always preserved. A good example is the white spaces inside the value or the opening and closing tags. For example, you have an opening tag T1, then you have John Wayne inside it, then a /T1 as the closing tag. It's not the same as a T1 with a John Wayne without a space and a closing tag. So you have to make sure that the white spaces are correct within the content body. An object can either contain basic information such as a name, or more complicated data with tags being nested inside the object, such as the location in this case. Now let's move on to the lesson review questions. First question is, what data format does this illustration represent? If your answer is JSON, then you got it right. Remember, JSON is composed of curly braces, square brackets, and quotations on its syntax. Which of the three data formats is the easiest for humans to read and write? If your answer is YAML, then you got it right. Which of the three data formats uses tags and is very suitable for machines to read and write? If your answer is XML, then you got it right. In this lesson, you'll learn about differences between data formats such as XML, JSON, and YAML. We also spoke about white spaces and to which data format it will be important. We also covered which data formats can easily be read and written by humans and which are suitable for machines. We appreciate your time and thank you for watching the video. In this lesson, we will talk about which orchestration tools are considered as agent-based tools and which are agentless. We will also briefly talk about Puppet, Chef, SaltStack, and Ansible. Note that each orchestration tool is a big topic itself, so we'll just cover the use cases, the advantages, and the disadvantages of each. We will also show you a comparison table that shows the differences between the four orchestration tools. Puppet, Chef, Ansible, and SaltStack present different paths to achieve a common goal of managing large-scale server infrastructure efficiently, with minimal input from developers and system admins. All four configuration management tools are designed to reduce the complexity of configuring distributed infrastructure resources, enabling speed and ensuring reliability and compliance. Puppet, Chef, and SaltStack are considered agent-based tools, while Ansible is an agentless orchestration tool. Now let me give you a high-level overview about the four orchestration tools, including its use cases, advantage, and disadvantage. The first one is Puppet. Puppet is a robust configuration management and automation tool. Cisco supports the use of Puppet on a variety of devices such as Catalyst switches, Nexus switches, and the Cisco Unified Computing System or UCS server platform. Puppet works with many different vendors and is one of the more commonly used tools used for automation. Puppet can be used during the entire life cycle of a device, including initial deployment, configuration management, and repurposing and removing devices in the network. Puppet is typically used for the following: orchestration, automated provisioning, configuration automation, visualization and reporting, code management, node management, and role-based access control. Here are the advantages of Puppet. Puppet has strong compliance automation and reporting tools. It has an active community support around development tools and cookbooks. It provides intuitive web UI to take care of many tasks, including reporting and real-time node management. It is robust with native capability to work with shell-level constructs. The initial setup is smooth and supports a variety of OSs. Particularly useful, stable, and mature solution for large enterprises with adequate DevOps skills resources to manage our heterogeneous infrastructure. So what are the advantages of Puppet? It can be difficult for new users who must learn Puppet DSL or Ruby, as advanced tasks usually require input from CLI. The installation process lacks adequate error reporting capabilities. Another disadvantage is that it's not the best solution available to scale deployments. The DSL code can grow large and complicated at higher scale. It uses multiple masters, which complicates the management process. Remote execution can also become challenging. Support for Puppet is more focused toward Puppet DSL over pure Ruby versions. And the last disadvantage is that it lacks push system, so no immediate action on changes. The pull process follows a specified schedule for tasks. Now let's talk about Chef. Chef is an open source configuration management tool that is designed to automate configurations and operations of a network and server environment. Chef is written in Ruby and Erlang, but when it comes to actually writing code, within Chef, Ruby is the language used. Configuration management tools function in two different types of models, push and pull. Push models push configuration from a centralized tool or management server, while pull models check in with a server to see if there's any change in the configuration. And if there is, the remote devices pull the updated configuration files down to the end device. Chef is used for infrastructure automation, cloud automation, and automation for DevOps workflow. Here are the advantages of Chef. Chef is one of the most flexible solutions for OS and middleware management. It is designed for programmers. It has strong documentation, support, and contribution from an active community. It is very stable, reliable, and mature, especially for large-scale deployments in both public and private environments. Chef offers hybrid and SaaS solutions for Chef Server, analytics, and reporting, and it has sequential execution of order. Now, what are the advantages of Chef? Chef requires a steep learning curve. The initial setup is also quite complicated. It lacks push, so no immediate action on changes. The pull process follows a specified schedule as well. Chef's documentation is also spread out, and it can become difficult to review and follow. Now let's talk about SaltStack. SaltStack is another configuration management tool in the same category as Chef and Puppet. Of course, SaltStack has its own unique terminology and architecture. SaltStack is built on Python, and it has a Python interface, so a user can program directly to SaltStack by using Python code. However, most of the instructions or states that get sent out to the nodes are written in YAML or a DSL. These are called salt formulas. Formulas can be modified but are designed to work out of the box. Another key difference from Puppet and Chef is SaltStack's overall architecture. SaltStack uses the concept of systems, which are divided into various categories. For example, whereas the Puppet architecture has a Puppet master and Puppet agent, SaltStack has masters and minions. SaltStack is used for the following. It is used for orchestration and automation for cloud ops, automation for IT ops, continuous code integration and deployment, application monitoring and auto healing, DevOps toolchain workflow automation with support for Puppet, Chef, Docker, Jenkins, and Git, and etc. So what are the advantages of SaltStack? SaltStack is effective for high scalability and resilient environments. It is easy and straightforward to use past the initial installation and setup. It has strong introspection. It has an active community and support. It has feature reach and consistent YAML syntax across all scripting tasks. Python offers a low learning curve for developers. Now, what are the disadvantages of SaltStack? The installation process may not be smooth for new users. The documentation is not well managed and is challenging to review. Web UI or user interface offers limited capabilities and features. SaltStack may not be the best option for OSs other than Linux. The platform is new and not entirely mature as compared to Puppet and Chef. Now let's talk about the fourth orchestration tool, which is Ansible. Ansible is an automation tool that is capable of automating cloud provisioning, deployment of applications, and configuration management. Ansible has been around for quite some time and was catapulted further into the mainstream when Red Hat purchased the company in 2015. Ansible has grown very popular due to its simplicity and the fact that it is open source. Unlike the automation tools covered in the previous slides, Ansible is an agentless tool. This means that no software or agent needs to be installed on the client machines that are to be managed. Some consider this to be a major advantage of using Ansible compared to using other products. Ansible communicates using SSH for a majority of devices, and it can support Windows Remote Management or WinRM and other transport methods to the client it manages. In addition, Ansible doesn't need an administrative account on the client. It can use built-in authorization escalation such as sudo when it needs to raise the level of administrative control. Ansible is being used for the following. It is used for streamlined provisioning, configuration management, app deployment, automated workflow for continuous delivery, security and compliance policy integration into automated process, and it's being used to simplify orchestration. Now, what are the advantages of Ansible? Ansible has an easy remote execution and low barrier to entry. It is suitable for environments designed to scale rapidly. It shares facts between multiple servers so they can query each other. It has a powerful orchestration engine, so strong focus on areas where others lack, such as zero downtime rolling updates to multi-tier applications across the cloud. It provides easy installation and initial setup. Syntax and workflow is fairly easy to learn for new users. It performs sequential execution order. It supports both push and pull models. The lack of master eliminates failure points and performance issues. Agentless deployment and communication is faster than the master-agent model. And the last advantage is it provides high security with SSH. Now, what are the disadvantages of Ansible? Apparently, Ansible has increased focus on orchestration over configuration management. SSH communication slows down in scaled environments. It requires root SSH access and Python interpreter installed on machines, although agents are not required. The syntax across scripting components, such as playbooks and templates, can vary. Ansible has an underdeveloped GUI with limited features, and the last disadvantage is that the platform is new and not entirely mature as compared to Puppet and Chef. Now here's a comparison table about the 4 orchestration tools that we covered from the previous slides. Many organizations face lean IT problems and high turnover rate, and network engineers are being asked to do more with less. Utilizing some of the tools covered in this lesson can help alleviate some of the pressure put on IT staff by offloading some of the more tedious, time-consuming, and repetitious tasks. A network operator can then focus more on critical mission responsibilities such as network design and growth planning. As mentioned earlier in this lesson, a majority of these tools function very similarly to one another. This table provides a high-level comparison of the tools that we already discussed. The most important factors in choosing a tool are how the tools are used and the skills of the operation staffs who are adopting them. For instance, if a team is very fluent in Ruby, it may make sense, right, to look at Chef. On the other hand, if the team is very confident at the command line, Ansible or SaltStack might be a good fit. The best tool for the job depends on the customer, and choosing one requires a thorough understanding of the differences between the tools and solid knowledge of what the operations team is comfortable with, and that will play to their strengths. In this lesson, you learned about which orchestration tools are considered as agent-based tools and which are agentless. Puppet, Chef, and SaltStack are considered as agent-based tools, while Ansible is an agentless orchestration tool. We also covered the use cases, the advantages and disadvantages of Puppet, Chef, SaltStack, and Ansible. We also included a comparison table to show the differences between the tools. Again, thank you very much for watching the video.